So far I've described quite a bit about the direct service piece of what the Assistive Technology Resource Center does. Briefly, I want to describe a growing role that Assistive Technology Resource Center is experiencing, and that is in the area of consultation and education. We're seeing a shift for more demand around assistance with making courses accessible, and a part of that is how to create accessible web pages and web materials, ideas for universal design for instruction. The part that excites us about this is that there's more interaction now with faculty, and we feel like that'll have far-reaching impacts in terms of delivery to students with disabilities, and perhaps less of a need for accommodation at some level. At this point, I'd like to just give a bit of a historical background for how the Assistive Technology Resource Center spearheaded some initiatives around web accessibility. The Assistive Technology Resource Center is involved in a number of professional organizations, both within the state and nationally, and through those interactions it became very apparent that there was going to be an increased need to focus on creating online materials or web-based materials that are accessible for students with disabilities. So we saw that trend coming. A way that we felt it personally was we had students on our campus that were struggling, students with disabilities that were struggling with being able to access parts of a course. A great example of this is Sarah, who you have seen or will see in the video. She came to our center and said, I'm taking this class through WebCT and portions of it are not accessible to me. What do? I cannot access things like quizzes, other pieces of information through WebCT. And this flagged a need for the Assistive Technology Resource Center to get educated about this topic and try to address this individual need. And then it made us realize that we need to address this on a larger campus level in terms of being proactive and ensuring that students with disabilities will have access to web-based materials or online instruction. So it was initially driven by a student need. The other thing that happened around the same time is that there were rumors of Section 508, and it hadn't been solidified, but we were trying our best to interpret what Section 508 might mean for our campus. Rather than waiting to hear what the mandates would be, we chose to be proactive and anticipate what it might require of our campus. At that point in time, the Assistive Technology Resource Center had an advisory board that assisted with lots of decision making, things like helping us write policies and procedures. Naturally, what came out of interaction with the advisory board was this need to address web access. So our advisory board decided we would develop a separate subcommittee, and we coined it the Web Accessibility Committee. And we tried to develop a committee that was very representative of a cross-section of individuals that might have some interest in web accessibility for students with disabilities. So for example, we included folks like a resource person in terms of WebCT, someone from our central computing branch, the director of our disability office, a representative from the library, the director of public relations, because that is the office that oversees our homepage for campus, the campus webmaster, an individual with instructional design skills, a few more individuals, but you get the general idea that we tried to have a good cross-section of experts in terms of web and disability. The subcommittee spent about a year developing guidelines that we thought would meet what the W3C and Section 508 were suggesting. Now that the guidelines are complete, we feel like the focus of the committee is dissemination of the information. And in general, we're finding on our campus that faculty and administrators are not necessarily resistant to this idea. They're just unaware, or there is a lack of understanding about 508 and the W3C. I think the next task at hand for the committee is to educate administrators. And we've just begun that process, hoping that this idea of web access could come from a top-down approach and get infiltrated throughout the campus. However, that process has just begun. So to address immediate student needs, we have really focused a lot on a grassroots level. We have found that there are some groups on campus that are quite receptive to this idea of creating accessible web materials. So that is where we have put our energy. And there have been some nice success stories around different units or individuals that have taken to heart this idea of creating universally accessible web materials. And those are the groups we have spent the most time with, provided consultation, training, education, and we'll continue that process. So hopefully in the long term, they'll continue to be a grassroots effort, as well as eventually some kind of top-down directives at the administrative level. And that's the part we're just now beginning.